Hey, we have some exciting news to share. We have written a book, Polarity, Intelligence, The Missing Logic in Leadership, and it is now available for pre-order on Amazon. Just search for the title of our book, Polarity, Intelligence, The Missing Logic in Leadership, and pre-order your copy today. As listeners of our podcast, you know we have been using the principles of a polarity mindset, healthy relationships, and meaningful dialogue as leaders for decades. And as business partners, these principles are the cornerstone of our business. Polarities are all around us, even in us, and if you can't recognize them and don't know how to leverage them, they will haunt you. They will keep showing up as persistent problems you are unable to solve. For us, having this knowledge compels us to share it with leaders around the world. We believe the polarization in our homes, schools, communities, and world would shift if every leader became polarity intelligent. We can't wait for you to read our book. Pre-order your copy of Polarity Intelligence, The Missing Logic in Leadership on Amazon.com now. This is Healthcare's Missing Logic podcast, episode number 223. And today's Encore episode is a question. Is problem solving the most valuable skill a leader can have? And this was a very special podcast the first time we did it, and we're excited to bring it back again today. And for this one, Tracy, I'm sure you recall, it was the first time we ever did a podcast on YouTube, on video, in front of the audience. And it was also exciting because it was the episode that we first brought the term polarity intelligence and what it actually is. We talked about it and we defined it for our listeners.
Yeah. And, I think it aligns really great with where we're at right now because, back then we were making changes, right, to the podcast. We were evolving and here we are again.
Back again,
evolving again, refreshing. So it really just kind of, is the evolution of the podcast gives you a sense of where we were a couple years ago.
Yes, and now we have a book coming out, Polarity Intelligence, The Missing Logic in Leadership. And so the question was a great question, is problem solving the most valuable skill a leader can have? And we know that problem solving can be the Achilles heel of leadership. And this is so true that we dedicated a whole chapter on this topic.
Yeah, we did. And it really is the Achilles heel when you're applying it to polarities. So, we recognized when we started the podcast a long time ago, right, that you had to really understand polarities. You needed to leverage polarity thinking was kind of where we were at the time. And, but what we realized is that it's not enough to just understand and be able to identify polarities and to know how they work. You really have to leverage them, and you can't leverage them in isolation. You need to be able to engage others, and you need to have some other skills to complement your polarity mindset and your ability to differentiate between a problem and a polarity. And those complementary components were meaningful dialogue and healthy relationships. And it's the three that bring together polarity intelligence. And we talk about that in the podcast as well. So
yeah, we do. And you also will hear us say in the episode that we have dedicated the rest of our careers to helping healthcare leaders attain the essential competency of polarity intelligence through our coaching and programs and consulting services that we offer. And we also now offer it to all leaders. And because it's pertinent to all leaders, these are universal principles. Mm-hmm. And all leaders need to know the difference between a problem to solve and a polarity to leverage, as well as mastering the skills of healthy relationships and meaningful dialogue.
Yeah. And so, it is the missing logic in leadership, not just in healthcare. Mm-hmm. And it's a missing logic everywhere, really, folks. Come on. But leaders change the world, right? So we're starting with you. And the other thing is just that, right, there's a lot of polarization. There's a lot of tensions. Now, not every tension is a polarity, but many of them are the result of holding on to opposing perspectives, right, or contradictory perspectives. And so it really is essential, especially during these polarizing times, to reconnect with each other in our relationships, to engage in meaningful dialogue so that we can have a deeper understanding of these contradictory or opposing perspectives, and really to get to a greater purpose or a shared purpose through that understanding.
And just to shine some light on some of the top tensions you're feeling as a leader, not that Tracy and I have to shine a light on it, but I think you'll get why this is so important right away, because it impacts all industries. Right now, a major tension is dealing with the changes in the workforce and generational differences. We haven't talked to a leader in any industry that isn't really challenged by that. And just staffing, right? Having enough staff and dealing with recruitment and retention of your staff. And another one that's really prevalent for all industries is just this tension we're living in right now in this in-person and remote work still, and figuring out how to really well balance that, having, what we did go through with the pandemic and living in this hybrid and virtual world and all of the challenges that brings as well. So polarities are everywhere and not everything is a problem, so stay tuned. Welcome back to Healthcare's Missing Logic podcast. This is the only podcast that shows you how to leverage polarity intelligence, an essential competency for healthcare leaders, and the missing logic in healthcare, so you can create healthy, healing organizations and become a thriving, resilient, and unstoppable healthcare leader.
We are your hosts, Tracy Christofferson and Michelle Trosett. We've been best friends and colleagues for over 30 years. And during that time, we coached healthcare leaders across North America around how to create healthy, healing organizations.
Today, we coach healthcare leaders and leadership teams to live thriving, resilient, and balanced lives, combat burnout, and create the best places to give and receive care.
This podcast is for the unsung hero of healthcare, the healthcare leader. We want you to know we see you and we'll be here for you each week. In this podcast, we're going to challenge healthcare's industry norms, flip limiting beliefs, and share proven strategies so you can be your best self at work and at home, live and lead intentionally, and experience well-being and joy.
We are glad you are here and look forward to sharing the journey with you. If you aren't totally convinced this podcast is for you, just listen to a few episodes and convince yourself. Welcome to Healthcare's Missing Logic podcast.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
And this is a very special episode.
It is. This is phenomenal.
Yeah, this is episode 106, and we are live in the studio, and we are making significant changes to our podcast. And it starts right now today.
Right here. And we're celebrating our anniversary.
We are.
2 years.
This week is our 2-year anniversary of our podcast.
Yep. And by the way, I'm Tracy.
And I'm Michelle. And we are glad you're here.
Yeah. And we're your co-hosts.
And we have our glasses on because we have been teaching healthcare leaders how to look at healthcare through a new lens.
That's right.
For 2 years.
Yeah.
And now we are evolving into a whole new way of thinking and being and understanding, and we're bringing a competency to healthcare leaders everywhere.
Yeah, here we go.
Here we go.
You
ready?
Yeah.
Let's take these off.
Yeah. Yeah. So, there's a few changes in the podcast. We're going to be on YouTube now, along with all the other podcast platforms, which is exciting.
It is exciting. So you can continue to listen to us on your favorite audio platform. But now if you actually want to see us in action, we want you to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
It's Missing Logic, and all of these episodes are going to be on YouTube.
Yeah. Isn't that fun?
It is fun.
It is.
I'm excited. I'm excited.
I know, me too.
We're also going to have themes for each of our batches. Now, many of you know we batch 12 sessions, and we just drip them out over the following 12 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And this batch, we're going to be talking about well-being with our guests and with each other.
Yeah.
And how important that is for healthcare leaders. So that's going to be our theme for this time.
We've got some phenomenal interviews. They're all phenomenal.
They are.
They're pretty incredible. They're fun.
Yeah.
Entertaining.
Enlightening.
Wisdom's cheering.
Yep. And of course, we love our solo episodes. Today is a solo episode, and we are going to be introducing a very new, not so new, but new.
It's an evolution.
It's an evolution concept of our work that we do with healthcare organizations and healthcare leaders. Yeah. And it's time. It's time for it to be born.
Well, we've been learning a lot as I had 2 years of podcasts and working with different healthcare leaders all
Yes.
across the country. And so our thinking has evolved, and we want to share that with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So today is all about polarity intelligence, which is a new competency for healthcare leaders that we're going to be sharing with you. And, contrary to what you might believe, not all problems can be solved.
Really?
Yeah, it's a new thing out there. Yeah. We've only said it, how many episodes? 105 episodes. But if you haven't been listening to us, right, you just need to know that insolvable problems are actually polarities. And polarities are interdependent pairs of values or perspectives or points of view. They appear to be opposite or contradictory to each other, but they actually are interdependent. They need each other over time to reach a greater purpose. And so that's, a little bit about what we're going to be talking about, continuing to carry that torch.
Yes. So that will not change. You're still going to hear that a lot.
Definitely.
And we know that polarities must be leveraged and managed to achieve sustainable outcomes. So we have to really pay attention to them. And that leaders who only put on that problem-solving lens, that they are going to fail 100% of the time. So it's such a gift to understand how polarities work and how you can manage and leverage them. And we also know that if you just know about polarities, it's not enough. And Tracy and I, we can tell you, we have presented the concept of polarities to leaders in person, virtually, in coaching programs, and every time people get excited about it because we're bringing them a new way to look at things. But it's just like everything else. If you don't really apply it and integrate it into your life, it's not going to do any good. So we're really on a mission to make it much more than that. And we're seeing outcomes with the people we're working with who are really applying it now. So that's very exciting. So polarity intelligence is the missing logic in healthcare, and it actually is an essential competency.
Yes.
It's certainly a competency for leaders.
It is. You really can't be without it. And, you're excellent problem solvers.
Yep.
But polarity intelligence is the other tool that you need in your toolkit.
That's right. That's
in your
right.
Toolbox. And, if you happen to be a conflicted leader, what's true for that is that you feel the tension, right? You feel the tension kind of between these interdependent perspectives, points of view, but you kind of lean away from engaging in the really difficult or meaningful conversations that you might need to have to reveal those perspectives, right?
Right.
Because that tension kind of makes you feel conflicted, right? Like
it does.
You believe one thing and other people believe something else. And, it's a challenge, right, for healthcare leaders to kind of open up and see all those perspectives. And we kind of don't want to do that.
No, we don't want to do that because we may or not even realize that we have a preference of viewing things one way.
Yeah.
So, when you don't even realize there's another perspective, an interdependent part of it, it can get very uncomfortable. And we don't like uncomfortable.
No. Well, just look at the last 16 months of our lives, folks, right? How many polarities have been out there? How much tension and unipolar thinking has there been? And how many of you have just jumped right in to have great conversations about it? I would probably say a few.
No, I bet you a few of you said, and when they come to dinner, don't say anything about it.
Yeah, don't say anything. Don't bring it up.
Don't bring it up.
Don't bring it up, right? Because it's uncomfortable. It's difficult. It's hard for us because we don't have the skill.
Yeah.
Right? It's all about having the skill to have this meaningful dialogue, to invite the perspectives, right? But when you're a conflicted leader, you struggle with that. And you struggle with just believing that the other perspective or point of view is actually connected to yours. So you just don't know that. Right. And that's a struggle to realize that they really are both needed. It's not an either or choice. You end up making false choices, which results, right, in just challenges with resources and money and all of that. Right. They're all consequences when you make false choices and you're not you're applying either or thinking when really what you're facing is a both and situation. So,
yeah. So if you don't recognize that, what happens is you just end up in this vicious cycle of negative consequences. To your point, Tracy, it just happens over and over and over again. And you just kind of spin your wheels, and nothing changes, right? You just have a lot of angst.
You have a lot of this.
angst.
You have like Groundhog Day.
You do.
You have a lot of the same thing over and over. And you're always saying, didn't we just talk about this or try to deal with this last year? Weren't we looking at this 6 months ago? Why is this back again, right?
Yep.
And that's what happens, that vicious cycle of negative consequences that you're dealing with over and over and over and over, right? And we've seen this for 30 years, folks, right? And that's why we dedicated the rest of our careers to really bringing this truth, to bringing this competency, this essential competency to healthcare leaders, because we don't want to see you struggle with this anymore.
Right.
We don't want to see you dealing with the pain and the challenges and the frustrations that come along with that vicious cycle, right? And polarity intelligence is now kind of this, it includes polarity thinking, but it's so much more than that.
Right.
It's so much more than that.
Yeah.
And, in our pillar number 2 of our dynamic balance effect is polarity intelligence. And we've been leveraging that to help healthcare leaders become thriving, resilient, and unstoppable leaders.
Yeah. And that is just really the first step, right? This is where they are able to identify polarities and understand the principles and the concepts, and the light bulbs start going on. So it's very exciting. And the polarity intelligence of the dynamic balance effect really lays the foundation for even deepening that understanding. And it also helps us to bring it into organizations through the healthy organization framework that we work with organizations on.
Yeah.
So it's in both places.
It's fundamental.
It is. It's everywhere.
Foundational. Got to have it. So what is polarity intelligence? Maybe you'll want to know, right? It's more than just polarity thinking. So here's how we have defined it. And I'm going to read it because it's a new definition. I haven't committed it to memory yet. So it is unconscious competence, which I just love, right? We want this to be like tying your shoes. Like you solve a problem, you manage polarities. That's how we want this to be.
Easy peasy.
So it's an unconscious competence in recognizing the polarities, and then in the ability to understand that dynamic balance in the invisible energy that combines those two interdependent points of view or values. And by doing that, you transcend personal biases by focusing on the actions and behaviors on achieving a greater purpose. So this is really all about leveraging meaningful conversation, inviting people in, and really overcoming the bias to see the whole picture, to be open to the whole picture.
Exactly. And what I love about that is the invisible energy.
Yeah.
I mean, I just love that because it's there, and that's what makes it challenging. But once you really know it's there, and we'll guide you through this, and you get the feelings of it, then you kind of know how they work. That's where the magic happens. So the first thing is to be able to recognize there is a polarity here. It's not a problem. There's a polarity I'm dealing with, and once it's recognized, then it really invites in listening to the opposing perspectives, understanding where both sides are. And really enabling that transcendence of personal bias, and it's done through conversation. That's the other key learning we've had. You can't do this without meaningful dialogue.
Right. And I think that's a key point. It's meaningful dialogue. It's not hanging on to your pole. It's not hanging on to your perspective. It's really honoring your perspective and honoring the perspective of the other person.
Yep.
And it's a skill.
It is a skill.
It has to be acquired. And that's why just knowing about a polarity is not enough. Just understanding how they work is not enough. You need these other skills combined with that to really engage in understanding these polarities and managing them.
And trusting, right? Yeah. And trusting, really practicing and trusting. Another core to polarity intelligence is healthy relationships, supporting, just the shared purpose and why we're here, and having a hyper awareness of the current realities around us, and help us to really progress through the relationships to the higher purpose of. So that's really important too. And it helps us to be very intentional in managing that energy pattern. And we can help each other do that through the relationship aspect of it.
Well, when we have solid foundation of relationships, we can have any kind of conversation, right? So that's why that's essential.
Yeah.
Right? It opens up that ability to have the dialogue and to overcome the bias and to work towards that shared purpose.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah, it's essential. It's all essential, folks. So why polarity intelligence? Why is it essential? Why is this a competency for leaders? Well, let's talk about that. First of all, it really helps you fail faster and speeds up the transformation because you're aware of how the energy works. You know what's happening. So you can course correct very quickly because you're going to catch yourself much earlier rather than when you're trying to address a polarity as a problem. It can take years for you to figure out that you're on the wrong path, right? Sometimes some of that shows up in longer periods of time, sometimes in short periods of time, but you don't know.
Yeah.
It's not, you can't predict the time frame.
When you just said it speeds up transformation, I just wanted to go, hallelujah. Because
give me some of that.
We all know how long it takes for things to change in healthcare. Exactly. Well, if we can speed things up through a new intelligence, hallelujah. That's all I got to say.
That's right. That's right. The other thing is the common language, right, that you get, and that the competency, because now we have a language to describe. I can't tell you how many times I've talked about a polarity and somebody's gone, that's what I've been experiencing. Now I know what to call it, right?
Yeah.
And when you learn it together and you're developing this competency as a leadership team, right, then you all know, you understand that common language, that understanding how it works, what you're experiencing. You know what to do with it. You know how to manage it and leverage it. And it just makes such a difference.
Right. And you can bring are we over-focusing too much on this? Mm-hmm. And you can bring those types of questions of inquiry into the conversation as well. But when everyone understands polarities and how they work, it's like everyone just stops and listens to it. They appreciate that question.
Yeah, exactly.
So
the other is it leverages conflict and welcomes diversity and honors differences, right? Mm-hmm. Conflict is not bad. Right. Tension is not bad, right? We're kind of taught that it is, but it's not. Right. It's really good because it's telling you something's out of balance. The energy has shifted and you need to pay attention to that, right? And it's through diversity and differences that we grow and evolve and open up our perspectives. And just look at the last, year and a half. I mean, really, just even in the doors have been open for so many things because we had to let go of our biases and open our thinking to move forward, right?
Absolutely.
It moves us beyond the norms, the obvious. It is evidence for hope because we can let go of the resistance. We can see that there's a purpose in resistance. We can see how to manage that, how to leverage the energy. And that gives us hope to know, oh my gosh, these things are connected and we can do something about it, right? We can have both. Yeah. That's what's hopeful for people. They can let go of the fear and have hope that their perspective will be honored and leveraged as well. It is predictable. Now, that is the key pin here. You are going to get predictable results. If you manage it or you don't manage it, it's 100% predictable what's going to happen. That's worth its weight in gold right there.
It is. I think so.
It transmutes that fear into courage, right? Mm-hmm. I can let go of my fears. I can be courageous and we can move forward. It makes the invisible visible. This is a big thing too. It's working on us like gravity, folks. Can't see gravity, but we're stuck here to the earth, right? The same thing with polarities, right? Yep. You can't see them, but they're working on you all the time and working around you, and they're in you and around you.
They're in your family. They're in your organization.
In your nations. Yeah, they're everywhere. So we're going to make it visible, which is really great. And then it reveals values and deeply held beliefs and biases. And it's important for us to know what our biases are and what our beliefs are. And some of those things are so subconscious and so ingrained in us, we're not even aware of them. So this just really brings it out in a really good and positive way.
Yeah, yeah. It's a great discovery tool.
Yeah.
That's how I like to think of it too.
Yeah.
Right.
And biases are not bad either. Mm-mm. Like we kind of tend to think, oh, biases are bad, but they're not. Mm-mm. You just need to be aware of them and manage that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
So your call to action after learning about polarity intelligence is reflect on the challenges or issues you're facing now and look at it through that, from that perspective. What are the challenges and issues? And ask yourself, how many of these issues and challenges have I addressed more than once? So if things keep showing up in your life again and again, ask yourself, is this a problem or is this a polarity? And really give it that perspective. And when I experience tension, do I try to relieve it? How do you naturally deal with tension in your life? Do you try to squash it down and make sure, or are you open, right? You're open to explore it. And then how comfortable am I in engaging others in conversations around opposing points of view or perspective? So reflect on that as well, because that'll kind of tell you on where you sit with polarity intelligence.
Yeah. Those are key skills, right? So if you
Key
don't have
skills.
them, polarity intelligence is for you. Now, if you continue to avoid leaning into the tension, having meaningful conversations where you are, exposed to differing perspectives, points of view, opposite points of view, you're going to continue to make false choices. You're going to continue to get negative results instead of the positive results that you're after. And, that can have some pretty serious consequences in your life, and I mean, when you think about, kind of our theme of well-being, and we think about how, healthcare leaders and a lot of the leaders we've been working with lately, right? We tend to put others before ourselves, work before us, our family before us. Like it just kind of is our pattern, a pattern that we've seen, not everybody, but a lot of people. And, and you may have some family members, maybe your mom, maybe your partner, maybe your kids going, you're not taking good care of yourself. You're burning the candle at both ends. You're not looking too good. And you just kind of go, yeah, I know. This will be over soon. I'm fine. Right. And that's not necessarily the case. Right. And if you don't pay attention to those differing perspectives, there can be a downside to that. Now, Michelle had an experience of that.
I was just going to say, I don't know anyone that's done that.
Oh, yeah. Michelle had a significant challenge with that.
Yes, I did. And you know what? This is the thing. You can have really good intentions, but if you don't understand polarities, you can still get in trouble. So yeah, I did get in trouble with that. I was very passionate about my work. I was doing a lot of traveling, and I was leading a national effort in addition to my full-time job. And my husband was starting to tell me, I'm worried about you. And I just kept going, yeah, I'll be fine. I'm just like what Tracy said. And one day he dropped me off at the airport. He was extremely worried. I'm like, yeah, I'll be fine. Well, on that road trip, I ended up having a significant healthcare event, ended up in the hospital, and they thought I had a stroke. And ended up being a hemiplegic migraine event, but it still put me in the hospital for 5 days. Still had a pretty extensive recovery. And it all came down to burning the candle at both ends. So I made a promise to my husband, no more. I will listen to you. And when you understand, and I even knew about polarity thinking at that time, but it really grabs you like, this is true. It is interdependent, balancing yourself and others, balancing your work and your personal life.
And listening to others when they tell you.
And listening to others because they
opposite perspective.
They see it before you do. Absolutely. So it's really different to be on the other side of that then, to be, really imagining being balanced and when you're really listening to everything around you. And it did get a lot easier for me after that. And I actually put a plan in place with my colleagues, had to listen to this one here, my best friend. She kind of was whispering in my ear. Listen to my husband, put a plan in place with my family. And, we still do it to this day. Yeah. Every Sunday, my husband and I check in. And now we just have been doing it for years. We recognize it is a polarity. It's work and life, right? Yeah.
Well, and again, it's that being open to that different perspective. Sometimes we just get so...
Yes.
Stubborn.
And we don't see
biased. We're biased. We're trying to make a difference in the world here. I got work to do. I got things to do, right?
Yeah.
I want to make an impact. I want to make a difference. I need to help my people. And, that's how this...
I need to change the world.
Well, that's what we're telling ourselves every day. That's why we get out of bed and we run 20 miles an hour, right? We're just go, right? And we don't listen to that perspective. So it can happen even at this very personal level. So it's just, open up and then have a plan. Like I said,
have a plan.
Balancing both perspectives. You can still make a difference and listen to your husband. Now, imagine what it would be like if we didn't do that, right?
Yeah.
It's not pretty. It's really not pretty. But true healthcare leaders, and we call true healthcare leaders because they're thriving, resilient, and unstoppable. Mm-hmm. They know about polarities, right? So they don't have to.
They do.
They know how to catch that right before it gets there, and they know they're like gravity, and they're all around us, and they know too that you have to listen to both perspectives. They know that they have to lean into the tension. They know when tension occurs, that it is an example of something that's shifting. They need to pay attention, and they're flexible. They're dynamic with their balance, right? And they're kind of like, Tai Chi. It's a flowing energy, and every movement is intentional, and they are balancing that energy and being very, very intentional where they're putting their energy and their efforts. And it just makes such a difference, right? And they don't resist the reality. They lean into their reality, and they take charge. They take charge of it.
So, you probably have realized by now they don't teach this in medical school, nursing school, respiratory school, you name it school. That's not where you're going to find this.
No.
But we'll tell you where you can.
Yeah.
Because the first step in being that true, thriving, resilient, unstoppable leader is we have some things that can help you. So one of the things that we offer to our leaders is we have a self-study program called Caring for Others Without Neglecting You. And we also have a phenomenal boot camp that we've been running since the pandemic, and leaders just are embracing it because then they walk away with their own work-life balance blueprint, and we really help them apply it.
Yeah. It makes it real.
That makes it real. It makes it real. So you can find out about both of those right now on our website, missinglogic.com/new-events. It's the second tab at the top. And we have information about that. And we have had such joy being with leaders this last year, just walking down this journey with them of introducing them to polarity intelligence and helping them apply it in their personal lives. And we want to extend that invitation to all of you listening as well.
It's a great place to start.
It's
at the
a great
personal
place to start.
level, right? Like with your own personal
Yes.
polarities is really kind of getting an intimate understanding of how they work in your own life before you even think about it organizationally or nationally.
And what we find is a lot of people really have not really been exposed to this. And many of the people are leaders, and so that's why it's so important. If you're a leader, we can't tell you how helpful it'll be to have this intelligence. Yeah. So thank you for joining us for our anniversary podcast.
Happy 2 years.
2 years to us, 2 years to us, 2 years to you, our listeners.
That's right.
And our first inaugural YouTube. So we'll have to have an anniversary YouTube celebration someday too.
Sure. All right.
We'll do it. So until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and we will see you and you can hear us on our next podcast.
Yep. Take care. Stay safe and healthy.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Healthcare's Missing Logic podcast, now a top-rated podcast for healthcare leaders. Please share this podcast with other healthcare leaders and anyone else you think would benefit. We are certain that if you found value in it, they will too. If you haven't already done so, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any episodes. And also, it would mean the world to us if you took a quick moment to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast player. It helps to get the word out about our podcast and incredible guests. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to watch our podcasts. You can also follow us on our Missing Logic social media channels, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Until next time.